The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, went up on the mountain, and sat down there. Great crowds came to him, having with them the lame, the blind, the deformed, the mute, and many others. They placed them at his feet, and he cured them. The crowds were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the deformed made whole, the lame walking, and the blind able to see. And they glorified the God of Israel. Jesus summoned his disciples and said, "My heart is moved with pity for the crowd, for they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, for fear they may collapse on the way." The disciples said to him, "Where could we ever get enough bread in this deserted place to satisfy such a crowd?" Jesus said to them, "How many loaves do you have?" 7, they replied, "and a few fish." He ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied. They picked up the fragments left over, 7 baskets full. The Gospel of the Lord. The theme continues, just as yesterday we had the reading describing the peaceable kingdom, where the lion and the lamb and the bear and the ox will all play together and relax together. Today the theme is meals. The great meal on this mountain, the Lord will provide a banquet for all peoples, choice wines, and the whole description. The gospel is also about a meal after Jesus spends time healing and bringing alive the presence of God. Jesus is all about the fulfillment of prophecy. And as we heard the description of all of those things from the prophet Isaiah, we see them fulfilled as the Gospels unfold. Promises in and of themselves don't amount to much. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, isn't that the saying? But the promises of God are always good, and that we see in Jesus they're beginning to be fulfilled. And in the faith of every believing Christian, the promises of God being fulfilled, because we make that gospel come alive. St. Nicholas, whom we celebrate today, was one of those who made the gospel come alive so well. Such an advocate for the poor, and in so many ways. He did not intend to be famous, but he was acclaimed to be a Bishop of Myra because of his holiness and sanctity. If there's an interesting oratorio written by Benjamin Britten that tells the story of the life of Nicholas. If you have a chance, it's not too long, it's only about an hour long at the most, but it's a wonderful depiction of the ascendancy of this holy, humble and holy man to be such a strong proclaimer of the gospel, not so much by what he said, but by what he did. And of course, he's the origin of the current Santa Claus, is a kind of a mutation of his name, but quite thin and quite different looking, I have to admit, and quite different in style. But today we see the promises of the Lord fulfilled as the Advent time approaches and continues, and we look to the example of this 4th century bishop of Myra, present-day Turkey, to teach us how to be charitable and to be the agents that make the gospel come alive and the promises of God to continue to be fulfilled.